Welcome, filmmakers, to our filmmaker panel. These are first-time filmmakers, correct? Yes, first-time filmmakers for our Illuminate first-time filmmaker panel. We're very excited to be able to share the stories and some tidbits and just introduce you to these incredible filmmakers. We will have Dee Dee Pierce and Jean Kansinger, who will be our moderators. They are the chairs of the Illuminate Student Film Experience Committee, and they have chosen these films to do this panel with. So the filmmakers we have are Lindsay O'Keefe. She is the director of A Live Day. Sasha Bortnick, she is the director of A Head Shorter. And Dan Sullivan, the director of Miyamoto and the Machine, the story of Ken Ken. So we are so happy that you are here with us and to share your stories with these incredible students that will be watching this, and take it away.
So I'll start. I'm Dee Dee Pierce, and I'd like to thank you guys so very much for being here with us today, donating your time like you're doing, and most of all, for willing to share your experiences with this process of your first documentary film that you made. We have, your films are incredible. Not only are they filmed beautifully, but they all center around a powerful human story that speaks to resilience, to mindset, to survival, to responsibility, and they are just absolutely inspirational. So we have a lot of emerging student filmmakers that'll be watching this, and they're eager to learn from you, from your experiences, from your insights, into helping them, perfect their craft, if you will. So therefore, Jean and I have created some questions that we're going to ask you. We're going to take turns asking these questions of you. And I think it's going to be a really, really good conversation. We're looking forward to it. So I think we can go ahead and get started. The first question that we have is, what is the subject of your documentary? And then why did you choose this subject in particular for your first documentary? And so maybe we can start with Sasha. You could go first. And maybe I'll let you guys just kind of like decide, who to speak next, perhaps, unless you want us to call on you. So Sasha?
Okay.
Yeah, I actually didn't go into this I wasn't thinking I was going to make a documentary. I wanted to record my great uncle and have him on camera and have his story on camera. And I knew his story somewhat, but after I spent like the first 6 hours talking to him, I felt very inspired to actually move forward with doing a documentary about him. So it kind of happened very organically. I always kind of thought about doing something like that, but after hearing the details of his story, I was like, all right, this is what I'm doing. And it like fully just inspired me and I ran with it. That's how it happened for me. It wasn't super calculated, but I think I was looking for something, and this just really pulled me, and it's my family, I'm connected to it. And I loved how it was about resilience and not just, a victim.
Right.
So.
Lindsay, you go next.
Okay. Yeah, I'm similar to Sasha in the sense that I didn't really plan on making a documentary. So I've been volunteering at Youth Challenge, which is in the film. It's a nonprofit based here in Cleveland. And so they have like West and East Side locations. And I've been really involved with that program for about like 6 years now. And so I met Brianna. She's the subject of my film. She's a Paralympic swimmer, and she has no legs and one arm. And so I met her at Youth Challenge, and we kind of bonded from the start. She's, very outgoing, super nice. We hang out a lot. And learning more about her swimming career and her story, I kind of decided that this would be a really great project to do with her. And she hasn't ever had a documentary solely about her. She's had news reports or kind of like articles written about her. So she was really happy that I chose her specifically to make this like solely about her. So I'm just really happy that she's happy, and we've gotten so much closer through the project. So I'm really glad I was able to do that.
That's awesome.
So Miyamoto and the Machine is about a puzzle called Ken Ken. If you are familiar with the Sudoku puzzle in the newspaper, Ken Ken's kind of the other one that you might sometimes see next to it, but it doesn't have the same famous name. I'm kind of the opposite. I was trying to make a documentary before we stumbled upon this topic. So, you know, I had gotten to a place where we were trying to say, you know, let's, with the group that I collaborate with, let's stop trying to, this sounds very negative, let's stop trying to come up with the perfect idea, and let's just wait until some idea appears to us, and let's just really put some energy into it to see if it becomes something. And so, you know, a month later, my wife is a competitive puzzler. So she's actually in the film. And so she made me go to New York City to, you know, be a supportive husband while she competed in this Ken Ken tournament. And I just walked into a world that it felt like I walked into a world, like a different world. And I said, look at these people, they all have a way of being and a way of acting, and they're also eccentric and interesting. And we got to do something with this world. So I went back to my friends, and, you know, I talked it up, and it just kind of snowballed from there.
Awesome.
Thank you.
How long did it take to make your films, and were there things about the process that surprised you or that no one told you about?
I can start. It took me about, I would say, 2 years. I definitely like started and stopped, but I didn't anticipate needing a script for a documentary. It sounds kind of silly, but I figured it was a documentary and I'll just look at the footage and figure it out. Which maybe you can do, but because I wanted it animated, it became a lot more complicated. And I had to hire a transcriber, and that's just something I never anticipated. And just, I was even like transcribing it myself for like a good portion of it until someone was like, there's people that can do that for you. So that was definitely something I learned, and had to like write a script kind of like any other story. And that was a really, really difficult experience, but super necessary. So.
That's great.
Danny, you can go.
All right, yeah, we'll break up the routine. My film also took 2 years, and it, you know, similar thing. This is not my full-time job, so this is where you can find time for it.
Right.
I mean, the thing about film is that if you have 45 minutes to yourself and you want to sit down, you're not going to get much done in 45 minutes. It's really about getting big chunks of time, at least for the way that I work. I'd say the thing that caught me most off guard in this project was that film's such a visual medium that you want something that's fun to look at, you know, like a chef working his magic, or you know, an athlete. And my subject was a piece of paper on a pencil and paper with numbers. And so we were really struggling with, how do we stay away from talking heads and just have the movie be heads talking? And you're looking for B-roll and visual content and how to represent ideas visually as much as possible. Because a documentary that's just faces, after a while, it just feels like you're in a Zoom, you know. No offense.
Yeah.
Or like a
Yeah,
news report.
Yeah.
Your subject's not just about numbers, but it's about thinking, which is very abstract.
Yeah.
You know, to be able to convey that was really well done.
Thank you. It was difficult.
So yeah, I'll be the odd one out. So I'm 17, so I can't work on this for 2 years, sadly. I wish I could, but so I spent last summer basically doing this. That's all I could do because, you know, with the school year, I always wanted to get it all done. So for 3 months straight, I kind of just filmed, edited, did all of it. And also a time constraint I was on was that Bree was going to leave for college, like middle of August. So I wanted her to see it and approve of it before, you know, I sent it anywhere. So that was also me rushing, trying to get it done. But I'm just happy that, you know, it all worked out and she's happy in college. I think something that surprised me was the idea of pre-interviews, because I have never made a doc before. So I actually interviewed Bree twice. The first time I didn't film on camera. I just kind of talked to her to see, like, gauge her, you know, answers and kind of like what she's more comfortable talking with and what she isn't, because it's kind of like, you know, a personal topic, obviously. And then the second time around, I went to her house and it was more like a casual conversation. So in order to have that connection firsthand, for them to open up to you and like feel comfortable with you, I didn't know that was a thing, but I'm glad that we were able to accomplish that before.
It's a great observation.
Thank you. Did you have a filmmaking mentor helping you, working with you? And I guess, did you have one? And then how did you find them? And what was their role in your film and helping you direct your film?
I can talk to. I didn't have one, but I was working at a production company at the time. And I think that I know that gave me a lot of necessary experience, just knowing the basics of what I needed to do. So that's kind of like was my mentor, because I used all my skills that I learned there. So
Thank you.
I'll say that I'm a teacher, but at an art school, but I'm not an art teacher at an art school. I teach an academic subject. But there is one film teacher at our school that it wasn't so much a mentor that he was involved with the project, but just every now and again when the internet cannot produce an answer to a question, it's nice to have a person to go to that you can talk out, so definitely I would call my mentor.
Yeah, I had a mentor. I met her at like just a local camp. We hit it off about a couple of years ago, and she lent me her like sound equipment and just kind of helped me out with logistics and like how to make a documentary, since I was super new at it.
Equipment is actually the next thing we wanted to ask you about. What kind of equipment did you use? What software did you use to edit and produce? What cameras did you use? How professional line, what was the quality of the equipment you used? What can you tell us about either the software or the cameras?
Sure. I'll go first. I haven't gone first yet. So I'll do, we shot on a Canon C300, which is a 4K camera and that was our goal, was to say, if we're going to make anything, we want to make sure it's 4K. And that was something that we had access to, a used item for a deal. So we purchased that. I also used Final Cut Pro for the editing. The one thing that I think we featured in the film was our clip-on mic. And we had a Sennheiser like lav clip mic that was just incredibly valuable for us, because we quickly found how bad sound can ruin, a scene that you think is beautiful. So.
Yeah, I can talk.
Sorry.
You go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. I was gonna say I shot on a Canon Rebel, and my mentor, I just mentioned, she let me just like a very inexpensive boom camera, just the basics, just so I can have the quality sound for Bree, so we could hear her, because I can't use the camera sound, you wouldn't be able to hear her, and yeah, so just the basics. And I use Final Cut Pro too to edit.
I didn't shoot it or edited it, but I know what we used. I can talk about that. But yeah. We used a red Scarlett X camera, and with Canon lenses, it's a L still series, I think. And we just mic'd him up and had a boom, and that was a gaffer, and very simple interview setup. And then after couple of days of recording, I was editing footage and working with animators and all that. So it was a very quick filming process.
Yeah. Interesting.
Not very complicated.
Well, I think, they're all so different, and they're all really unique and special. These films definitely are. And so were there any special styles or techniques that you use in production to help tell the story, to facilitate it, to get it across easier? Sasha, you want to start?
Animation. Aside from the obvious, which is animation, which obviously enhanced the story and moves it along. We also, little interesting things we did was use this like old newspaper that we found as like a background to kind of create like feeling, and finding old radio clips. So that was something I learned, like the way, like all the stuff you can get for free on the internet, like recordings and like radio recordings, news broadcasts, all these things. So we used all that to make it feel more in the moment. Yeah.
A technique we were using that's visual. Also, animation saved us too. We were trying to not go to it because we didn't want to spend the money, but at some point we were able to get a little bit of money for a little bit of work. But we tried to do something where a lot of the people we were talking to, you know, they were introverts, they were math people, they were these very eccentric individuals that could. I didn't want them to look, you know, nerdy. I wanted them to try to feel like you were forced to get intimate with them. So we tried to be pretty tight on them for the bulk of the film in terms of the interview footage. We never wanted to do a wide shot showing any body too much, just because we felt like if we just force people to get in their face, they might, you know, listen to them a little more intently. And so that was something that we were conscious about doing.
Yeah, I think with Brie, because if you watch what she's saying, she doesn't actually explicitly say her disability, and I purposely, because at first she did, and I cut it out because I wanted the focus of the film to not be what she has, it's what she's doing despite what she has. So I wanted the focus to not be, because she has many disabilities she could have named, she could have said, you know, a lot more about her medical story, but the point wasn't that. You know, the point was that she's just against all odds, she's doing amazing things and she's not going to give up. And so I really wanted to just highlight that.
Thank you.
What was your favorite part of the filmmaking process?
For me, I think my favorite part, it's very hard because they're all really satisfying in different ways, but I think the most satisfying thing for me was boiling down the story and like having a script that I felt really good about. And then that gave me this feeling of like, okay, now I can run with it. Like that made it so much more enjoyable when I felt super solid in the story. So kind of like just figuring out what the story is, I think is the most exciting part for me.
Yeah, did you say you had 6 hours of interview?
I had 12.
12 hours of
6
interview.
was
So
one day. He had a lot to talk about, so it was almost 12 hours of
so you
footage.
boiled that down to
23 minutes.
23 minutes. That's a lot of writing. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the hardest but most rewarding and probably the most important, because like if that's not solid, I don't know. I don't think the rest would come into place, but yeah.
Lindsay and Dan, what was your favorite part of the process?
I would say the editing, kind of the same thing Sasha said, because the main difference obviously is that in a normal film, it's you have a script, you know the cuts, you know the scenes you're going to do. And then with the doc, it's really all in the interviewee's hands. They're kind of leading you, and then you kind of have to backtrack. And so that was the most crazy thing to me, because I'm so used to having, a script or knowing what to do. So kind of having that story and finally going through all the footage and just editing it in terms of, what I want her to say, what I want to show in this, the B-roll and stuff. I think that was the most fun part for me.
I'll have to say the collaboration. I mean, you can't do this stuff alone, and my brain's good at some things, but it's really bad at other things. And being able to find a couple of people, it was just the three of us that made the film. Being able to just do that work, everyone kind of take their role and get excited about it. But it is kind of what Sasha said, when we discovered the story collectively, that's the thing that sent everyone forward. But yeah, you need energy from others as well.
Right. And, you kind of touched a little bit on my next question here, but let's see if we can frame it this way. Maybe we can put a little twist on it. And that would be, what was your most rewarding, moment or piece of doing this documentary for you? You want to start? Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, the rewarding thing is honestly that cohesion between the group. Yeah, I mean, it's the fact that, like, I don't walk away feeling like, oh, I just made this documentary film, like my first documentary film. I walked away feeling like I created a team that can go make a bunch of more films. And, like, I'll always love Miyamoto and the Machine for what it was, but I'm done watching that movie for a little while, and so I'm really, like, happy to be moving forward with that team.
Sasha,
Yeah,
your part.
Definitely creating a team is like kind of what has the most like afterlife. But I think for me, it was just finishing it. Like I had never finished something like that before. I have like a billion ideas in my head, and like this, I'm starting to write this, stopping to write this, and like when I started this, I was like, the only thing I need to do is finish this because I've never done that. So when I did, I was almost like, who did that? I just felt like, I was like, was that me? Obviously other people, but I saw just seeing something through, I was like, that's a great feeling and I want to do that again. Like I want to see something through and finish it. So.
Yeah, I think the most rewarding thing for me was just the response that Brie gave. I wasn't expecting her to be as enthusiastic and as happy. Like she's super active on Instagram and like Facebook, everything. So she's been posting about it, and like she calls it her documentary because she really just values it. Like in in an interview, she was saying like, yeah, this is mine. She made it, but it's mine. So like I really love how she feels like it's a part of herself too. And she's gone to me to some festivals. Her whole family has come. So she's really kind of going through this with me. And that's also why we've become so close. So I'm really happy that she loves it as much as I do.
That's awesome to hear just how much these films meant to you. What do you hope audiences take away from your films?
I hope that, honestly, I want people to walk away kind of having this feeling of like the importance of mindset and perspective. Obviously there's a lot to take from this, but I think kind of bigger idea for me was like how important our perspective is on things and how important our minds are, and having the right, or whatever the right mindset is at that time, can kind of make or break your circumstances. So
I'll say I wanted, I mean, there's like a documentary side of me that wanted people to understand or to be able to see that, hey, you know, there's something that you might take for granted, like these newspaper puzzles. There's people behind them, and there's stories for those people. But I also think Miyamoto's story, if he's a guy that kind of proves that if you just dig into yourself and keep pushing on the inside, you'll get to where you want to get, and and then the outside will change and be even better for yourself, you know. And that's what his life did.
I would say I want people to walk away with a feeling of, I don't know, not guilt, but they need to stop judging people based on their appearances or disabilities, physical, mental, anything, because, you know, anyone's capable of anything as long as they put their mind to it. It may just look different. As Brie was saying, you know, she's won countless awards for swimming. You wouldn't expect her to be a swimmer, but I want to stop people to judge people so quickly and to really like just accept them for who they are. And I want to stop ableism and just have people with disabilities feel welcomed wherever they go.
I think that we saw the films. The films are absolutely beautiful. They're wonderful films, each one of them. And you've kind of touched a little bit on a personal story, perhaps, that you experienced while making this film. But I guess if you had just one word that you would like to, share about the experience, that would be nice to hear. Just what the one word would be from each one of you. So you can go ahead, Lindsay, and start.
Do you mean a word describing the film, or just how it affected us?
Your personal connection or experience with, directing this film.
Yeah, I would say hope. I think coming into this, I really didn't know the depths of Brie's story, and learning about it really gave me hope because, she has done so much. And although we have a long way to go, obviously, I think we're on the right track, and she really showed me that.
Thank you.
I'll say again, I'm going to say the word again, which was the attitude that we had to have in the editing room. You have to walk down a long path. So, and then try it again.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I'm going to say trust, because I had to really trust myself, especially before anything happened, because I was like, I want to make an animated Holocaust documentary. So that was like, sounded really strange to some people, sounded really cool to some people. And I kind of initially was looking for validation before I started. And some people were like, yeah, like, I'm not sure. Like, and then I realized like, you can't do that. Like, you just need to not look for validation before you start a project that you can see, because not everyone can see it yet. And then once you do it, hopefully people will understand it. And
Sasha, can you say a little bit more about the choice of animation? Because you're right, it's a bold choice. And so how did you arrive at that? And what was that process like?
It hit me when I was interviewing him, because my great uncle is a very good storyteller, and I really could see what he was saying. Also, he's 88 and the story takes place when he's 12 and a half. And I was like, what can we do to emphasize the fact that he was so little when all this occurred? Because I think it's easy to forget when you're talking to someone older and, you know, they say, I'm younger, this, like, you kind of think they're in their 20s. You forget, like, he's a child.
Right.
So I wanted that to be clear. And I wanted kind of like a time travel mechanism. Like, I didn't want, like, there's a lot of Holocaust documentaries that people are just telling their stories, which is great, but I wanted it to be almost in real time.
Yeah.
And it's a very visual story, and it felt right. He set it up for me that way. Like, he was just really good at telling his story, and it's very action packed. So that felt right to me and different. And I wanted something that people would maybe pay a little bit more attention to, because it was different.
I think all of your stories, all of these documentaries pay tribute to what the human spirit is capable of, which is the heart of what the Chagrin Documentary Film Festival is all about. We want to be able to remind people where they can see your films, at least in the Illuminate lineup. Lindsay's film Alive Day is part of Block 1, which is Human Spirit and the Resilience of Youth. Sasha Bortnick's film A Head Shorter is part of Block 3, Holocaust Eyewitnesses to History. And Dan Sullivan's film Miyamoto and the Machine, the story of Ken Ken, is one of our a la carte film selections. I just want to thank all of you. This was wonderful. Thank you for donating your time and your insights for our teachers and students.
Yes.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Wishing you the best. Absolutely
You
best.
too.
Thank you.
Thank
You as
you.
well.
Thank you.